Hundreds of anti-vaccination protesters are marching through Melbourne CBD as the construction industry reels from a snap, 2-week shutdown imposed overnight. Riot police are stationed to meet a growing crowd of protesters who first gathered outside the CFMEU headquarters but have now made their way to Parliament House. Authorities had urged people to avoid the intersection of Elizabeth and Victoria Streets as hundreds of masked and unmasked protesters gathered outside the Queen Victoria Market. It comes as thousands of construction workers in metropolitan Melbourne and some parts of regional Victoria were stood down after the state government shutdown was announced last night. Some of those gathered held a banner reading freedom, while others sang the national anthem and chanted "if ***** the jab." And some identified themselves as construction workers and CFMEU members who opposed mandatory vaccinations. Flares were let off as the crowd began to march east along Victoria Street towards Parliament House. Mounted and riot police lined the steps of the Victorian Parliament as hundreds of protesters gathered outside. Some members of the group called for police to join their cause, while others urged Premier Daniel Andrews to come outside the building. Pole Wharf Liberal MP Richard Riordan described the level of security at Parliament House as a distressing sight. Mr Riordan linked the scenes of frustration and anger with an unsatisfactory roadmap released on Sunday. At its daily press conference, the Victorian government said there were 443 active cases of COVID-19 spread across 186 building sites. Treasurer Tim Pallas said 50% of inspected construction sites had failed to meet safety requirements, making the shutdown necessary on public health grounds. The construction industry must take this opportunity to reset and restart. He said, "The industry cannot go back to the way things were being conducted. It was a threat to public health in the most dramatic of terms. Government says appalling behaviour led to shutdown." Monday's action, which drew around 500 people to the CFMEU headquarters, was organised to oppose a Victorian government mandate requiring all construction workers to have had at least one COVID-19 vaccine dose by September 23. An angry crowd threw bottles and a crate at Victorian CFMEU Construction Secretary John Setka when he tried to address the protest. Last night, Treasurer and Industrial Relations Minister Tim Pallas said the decision to close construction sites in Melbourne, Ballarat, Geelong and the Mitchell and Surf Coast Shires for a fortnight was in response to widespread non-compliance across the industry. The government also cited the appalling behaviour on site and on our streets in making its decision. His morning, Mr Setka said he believed only a small number of protesters who were at the union headquarters yesterday taking part in the violent protest were actually union members. There were some union members there but, in the whole scheme of things, they weren't the majority there, he said. Mr Setka said professional protesters who had been involved in violent clashes with police in Richmond over the weekend were part of the crowd outside the CFMEU offices on Monday. He said the actions of people who were mostly not union members or construction workers had led to the industry shutdown. "We've kept our industry going safely since COVID hit us and we've tried to keep our members all working. And to now see, because of a handful of drunken idiots, there's 300,000 plus workers sitting at home for at least the next 2 weeks. It's very disappointing," he said. Mr Setka said he had never backed mandatory vaccinations. But the union was pro-vaccination. "We run radio ads encouraging our members to go see your GP if you've got any concerns, and get vaccinated," he said. He said it was still important to respect the rights of people who have a genuine concern. "Rather than force people to be vaccinated, we should take them on a journey, have the conversation with them and try to convince them," Mr Setka said. He said the idea of employers banning unvaccinated workers from sites was harsh and he did not support it. Victorian opposition leader Matthew Guy said the government should try to introduce rapid testing on building sites instead of shutting the industry down at a cost of billions of dollars a week. "The situation now needs union leaders and the government to sit down and calm the situation down and more the point to bring rapid testing onto building sites so that we can see which ones are the problem and shut those sites down on a site-specific basis," he said. Support for shutdown despite bitter blow. Master Builders Association of Victoria Chief Executive Officer Rebecca Casson described the shutdown as a bitter blow but said her organisation still supported it. She said it was particularly frustrating for those in the industry who had been doing the right thing and the association supported compliance checks. "It's absolutely vital that all of those organisations that are not doing the right thing are held to account because they do risk our whole industry being completely shut down," Ms Casson said. Obviously it's bad enough that we've got only a few sections of our industry that are shut down this time with regard to those LGA areas, but there are many others that can continue to work in some way, shape or form. The organisation supported the mandatory vaccination rule introduced by the government, and Ms. Kasson said she was sure workers could all get at least one dose in the next fortnight before resuming work. Protesters labelled man-baby Nazis. Labour MP Bill Shorten hit out at man-baby Nazis, who he said helped orchestrate the Monday's protest. Mr. Shorten told Channel 9 people who call themselves Nazis had used encrypted message systems to bring in a rent-a crowd. Some of those people in the crowd were construction workers, but others, I'm reliably informed, were fake traders. They'd been down to the reject shop and got themselves a $2 high-vis hoodie so they can pretend they were construction workers, he said. Mr. Shorten said while nobody wanted to see the industry shut down, there were a small number of people in construction who were making it impossible and intolerably to function properly in the short term.